There are 7 personality types that predict sexual problems in women. Which sexual character are you?
Welcome to Sensual Vitality-TV. I'm your host, Dr. Andrea Pennington.
Have you ever wondered what your personality might say about your sexual style or your risk for sexual dysfunction? Well, after spending the last few years speaking with women around the world about their sexual challenges, I've uncovered 7 common personality traits that may predict sexual hang-ups that you could see in the bedroom. So, are you the ice queen, mommy martyr, alpha boss, multitasking superwoman, pedestal princess, blessed but repressed, or the self-conscious spectator? Well, these aren't fixed personality types. They are acquired over time. And each personality type has assumed certain beliefs, taken on particular behaviors, and bought into a variety of myths about pleasure and orgasm. Now, the fact that only 1 out of every 4 women can achieve orgasm through penetrative sex alone eludes many women. Instead, some women blame their lover and they lament the fact that their partner is either not interested, not focused, or just not skilled enough to get her off. Others will mistakenly blame themselves, compare their experience to their girlfriend's, and feel ashamed, all of which is just not necessary. So it's time to put an end to the myths surrounding the female orgasm and knock down the barriers to pleasure, setting you on the path to body-rocking orgasms. Now, your level of self-acceptance, your religious background, and your moral influences, your beliefs about your worthiness to receive and enjoy pleasure, and your willingness to surrender to pleasure will all impact your ability to achieve orgasm. Now, these tendencies show up in particular character traits or personality types that we'll describe right now. Now, fortunately, if you do find that you've taken on 1 or more of these traits that are either zapping your sex drive, robbing you of orgasmic fulfillment, or blocking true intimacy, you can make a shift in your thinking and behavior to reclaim your innate sexual desire and sensual pleasure. From the ice queen to the mommy martyr, sometimes life forcibly moves us in the direction of practicality or self-sacrifice that leads to inevitable sexual decline. And if we've maybe taken on a bit too much masculine energy to get stuff done, as in the case of the beloved alpha bee or alpha boss, or maybe it's your religious fervor that has led you down the path of the blessed but repressed, the good news is that you can still break free and you can rise to a higher level of sexual expression and freedom. Now, the most common personality trait that sex and relationship therapists deal with is the self-conscious spectator. And in fact, this trait can actually be spread throughout all of the personality types. Whether seen in the pedestal princess or the multitasking superwoman, it's not uncommon for us to get in our heads evaluating our body and our behavior or even our sense of deservedness. So, are you curious to see which elements apply to you and how you can boost your orgasmic pleasure potential? Well, you'll also be getting several tips on how to implement, certain easy fixes straight away for more sexual bliss. Now, what follows are excerpts from my book, The Orgasm Prescription for Women, 21 Days to Heighten Pleasure, Deeper Intimacy, and Orgasmic Bliss. Let's get started. Number 1 is the self-conscious spectator. Her character traits include excessive worry and anxiety about her personal appearance and performance. Women who have a hard time enjoying sexual activity and problems experiencing orgasm frequently report too much going on in their head. So rather than being fully present to the sensations in their body, they're nervously attending to a mental dialogue about how they look, or wondering whether their partner is pleased, or judging them, or they're worried about whether they're doing it right. Masters and Johnson referred to this as spectatoring. When we play the role of a spectator, we're busily self-inspecting and monitoring our own activity so that we become distracted and we don't even notice or appreciate the good feelings that we could be experiencing. And sadly, when we're concerned with what is sexually acceptable or we're immersed in anxious thoughts about our performance, we can't fully enjoy the gift of our own sensual beauty and bodily pleasure. In addition, when we get caught up comparing ourselves to unrealistic, unchallenged social ideas about what is beautiful, or when we compare our body to models in magazines or actors in porn, or even our peers, we won't be as confident as we desire during sexual encounters. And also, becoming preoccupied with whether or not we will achieve orgasm, or worries about how we sound, can create a negative feedback loop. And this shifts our brain circuit away from pleasure mode into stress mode, which is not ideal for continued sexual arousal and orgasm. Our own mental chatter can block our appreciation of our lover's most potent moves, and the likelihood of reaching orgasm is slim to none if we're overwhelmed with anxiety about how we look, sound, or taste. So whether we're concerned with our growing to-do list or embarrassed about the messy state of our flat, our brains will not create the flood of chemicals and stimulation to the vagina that's needed for the erotic explosion that we desire. Now, if you sound like you might be one of these self-conscious spectators, then click the link down here to check out some of the remedies that will help you get back into your body and put your head in the game. The second personality type is the Alpha B, or Alpha Boss. Her character traits include domineering, masculine, strong, edgy, bitchy, hard, still sexy but intimidating, and aggressive. The Alpha B, or Alpha Boss, has become masculine and aggressive to get ahead in the corporate or entrepreneurial world. And to be seen as credible or competent, she has taken on masculine traits, almost always trying to prove that she is as good as, or that she doesn't even need a man, just to get stuff done. Now, after years of this type of attitude and behavior, the Alpha B often ends up suffering the sexual backlash of having a hard time to be the girl in the relationship. And as the Alpha B, she actually emasculates or intimidates men as she subconsciously competes with them, or she's just really quick to take the lead to get things done faster. For the Alpha B, when it comes to sexy time, she doesn't connect intimately and often doesn't enjoy a satisfying sexual relationship. She still likes sex and she values it highly, but like many other things in her high-powered world, she has incredibly high standards for sex. In fact, the Alpha B is often heard saying that if it ain't good, it ain't worth my time. Now, it may be that stress, her hormones, or her physiology actually has to kick in to strongly cause her to take notice of the need for a sexual release. So rather than blissful and bonding experiences, sex for the Alpha B can become a bit of like a performance or outcome-oriented. If this sounds like you, then check out some of the simple solutions that will help you reclaim your feminine sensuality and orgasmic potential. Next up is the Ice Queen. Her character traits include being cold, distant, frigid, rigid, stale, old before her time, and sexually shut down. Now, the Ice Queen is typically a mature woman who considers sexual passion and horniness to be a thing of the past, left only to hormonal teenagers or new lovers. The Ice Queen has basically shut down her inherent luscious sexual energy in favor of more appropriate or worthy pursuits, such as family, charity, or personal development. Sadly, this type of thinking and behavior rob the Ice Queen of the deep, intimate connection she could have at this stage in her life, when most of the insecurities about her body tend to go away. If she's in a long-term relationship or marriage, the Ice Queen's partner may think that she's lost interest in him, or that he finds that he must work incredibly hard to break the ice and get her even into the slightest of receptive moods. She may experience weak, short orgasms, if at all, but the experience of sexual union doesn't offer much of an emotional boost for the Ice Queen. If you can see how shifting your mindset towards mature, lofty, or serious pursuits has drained the hot-blooded sexiness that you once had, then check out the 3 myths that you must dispel to reclaim your sensual vitality. You'll also find recommendations to amp up pleasure and desire in the Orgasm Prescription for Women, 21 Days to Heighten Pleasure, Deeper Intimacy, and Orgasmic Bliss. You can download the first chapter and listen to a sample of the audiobook for free. Let's move on to number 4, the Mommy Martyr. Her character traits include being overwhelmed. She sacrifices her own pleasure and well-being while taking care of everyone else. She often feels guilty for indulging in any pleasure at all. The Mommy Martyr is known to sacrifice nearly everything for her family. Unfortunately, while taking care of everything and everyone on her to-do list, she comes up short. No pun intended. She doesn't easily allow herself to receive pleasure, and in fact, she feels guilty when doing something strictly for herself or for her own pure pleasure. She is generally rushed, harried, and tired most of the time, and the Mommy Martyr finds that the strain that this puts on her marriage and eventually her physical and emotional well-being are what usually drive her to change. So, if you don't have an orgasmic sex life because you're a martyr to motherhood and family, then something needs to change. Otherwise, you may suffer from emotional and physical burnout with unfortunate consequences for both yourself and your loved ones. So, check out some of the simple solutions to help you prioritize pleasure and discover how to find more balance that benefits you and those around you. Next up is the Pedestal Princess. Her character traits include being spoiled, always doted on, high standards must be met before she opens up, and she expects men to fall short or disappoint, so she stays in her tower above the world like a pretty, sexy girl who just can't be touched. The Pedestal Princess has been spoiled and doted on all of her life, whether by her mother and father or her first lovers, so much so that she now feels and always expects to be held in high regard. Therefore, any suitor will have to rise up to her incredibly high standards in order to simply ask her out for a date. Beyond that, she is basically untouchable and continually raises the bar on her standards and expectations, which prevents her from really getting emotionally close to anyone. Now, the Pedestal Princess is not conscious of how she basically expects or assumes that a man will fall short and never truly win her heart. So she feels frustrated because her needs aren't met, especially since she has unconsciously given responsibility for her orgasm over to her partner. When it comes to sex, she turns into a pillow princess. She commonly relies on the missionary sexual position while expecting her partner to do all the work to bring her pleasure and orgasm. She's not particularly generous in reciprocating, though she will direct him or just put herself into position to receive pleasure. If you've discovered that being in your high tower of untouchability is robbing you of the luscious pleasure of being fully engaged in your sexual relationships, then check out the tips below for breaking free from the limiting beliefs and myths of the Pedestal Princess. Next up is Blessed but Repressed. Her character traits include spending so much time in church that she feels sex is sinful. She's buttoned up tight and seems a little too holy to be in relationship. Or she may even have a history of sexual abuse. With her firm religious conviction, this woman believes that she has a great deal to be thankful for. She is quite blessed, but she's not willing to go after her desires, experience deep passion, or surrender to pleasure. She denies herself the ripe juiciness that a passionate love life could bring, because in the eyes of her God, excessive pleasure is hedonistic and sinful. Like the mommy martyr, she may feel guilty for engaging in sexual pleasure and may consider sex appropriate only for baby making. And depending on her upbringing or religion, to her, sex may be seen as shameful, dirty in the context of, outside of marriage. Because the blessed but repressed usually has to suppress her sexual desire, she may later find that it's really difficult to surrender to pleasure. Her denial of pleasure leads to frigidity later. Repression can often explode into lascivious behavior or marrying the wrong guy in order to justify having sex. Now, the woman who has some of the traits of the blessed but repressed is invited to look at her sexuality as a natural, divinely bestowed right. The exploration of sacred sexuality in marriage is also helpful. If this is of interest to you, check out the tips on reevaluating your beliefs and putting them into a healthy context for healthy sexual expression. Next up is the multitasking superwoman, often called the Mompreneur. Her character traits include she's always busy, she's juggling lots of tasks, she often takes on too much, always multitasking, and she has a hard time shutting down her mental activity. She's not in tune with her body, often very stressed out and frantic. For the multitasking superwoman or modern-day mompreneur, she stays in hyperdrive most of the time, and thus she finds it difficult to shut down her brain at night. Well, unfortunately, this means that sex is very seldom going to enter her mind spontaneously. And because she doesn't see pleasure to be productive, she doesn't give pleasure a high priority position on her to-do list. In fact, sex can be seen as a deterrent to her getting the really important things done, and thus sex can be seen as a threat to her well-being. Go figure. Now, some superwomen and mompreneurs secretly long for the days gone by. They're nostalgic for simpler times when she could have had fun, spontaneous sex and indulgent pleasure. But instead, she gets tiny hits of pleasure while on the go, mainly from food or other kind of treats. And then maybe she finally binge watches TV at night just to let her mind go. What is sad is that her partner will often pick up on her opinion that sex is just one more thing to do and more of a chore than a pleasure. Or their partner may assume that, he's just a second-class citizen compared to the kids or her coworkers. If you'd like to take some simple measures to get out of this pattern and reclaim your right to sexual fulfillment and pleasure, then check out some of my best advice here. And to add a few more sexy ideas to your sexual repertoire, I invite you to explore your sexuality a bit more with the free Mindfulness 21 Days of Bliss program. The short daily rituals, meditations, and sexploration activities can open your mind and heart to a titillating new world of your vibrant, luscious sexuality.
For more erotic, nerdy insights on how to improve your sex, love, or relationships, visit us online at sensualvitality.tv. Connect with us on Facebook at facebook.com/SVitalityTV